So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me in your lunch hour. I'm Lindsay Willott. I live just west of Oxford, and I'm the founder of Customer Thermometer, which is a customer success and feedback platform. Today what I wanted to talk to you about was what we've seen happen over the last couple of months, now that we have a small bit of perspective, at least on the beginning of things, if not the end of things. And then I wanted to move on and talk about 6 different ways that I think you can engage the sort of new normal customer in this environment. Now, obviously, they kind of change from industry to industry, B2B to B2C, but I think it's useful to just have a think about different ways that customers might be feeling. Some research and some background that we've done to look at how sort of opinions are changing, how data is changing, and certain market segments and certain industries, how they're coping. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of perspective, really, on what we've seen. I think that lockdown week or two, where all around the world the shutters just started to come down. The New York Times characterised that as being 10 years of change in just 1 week. The pandemic has just sort of swept through society, really, and in that week or two, everyone had to learn to survive in a completely new way. Whether you found yourself in your business doing quite well and thriving because you were in a demand situation, or whether we were forced to be closed, that change was really quite stark for all of us. So all of those 3 scenarios actually still pervade today. We are, all of us, either in an industry sort of crippled by shuttering, crippled by demand, or in this kind of furlough hiatus, wondering what's going to happen and whether we've just postponed a recession rather than staving one off. So, what might happen next? And I think what's really important, we get asked this question a lot, and what I think is really important is to understand that with everything that's going on right now, there is almost no way to know what might happen next. There's no way to know what it's going to look like, and yet we have to make plans, which is this sort of really challenging paradox that I think we're in. There's a celebrated investor called Howard Marks, and he commented that this is the paradox that we all face. So we took a deep dive into some of the sort of research that's out there and started to look at what the common themes that were arising were, to try and bring you some thoughts about what might happen next so that you can plan. So there are definitely going to be waves of false starts. I think things will be restricted in certain areas, only to be unlocked, only to be locked again. The BBC have described it as a recovery that's not binary. So it's not going to be we're either all locked down or we're all okay. And I think the length of that gap and the length of that time frame is going to be one of the most challenging things for all of us. There does seem to be a kind of situation where a lot of people are fearful about whether they'll get coronavirus, or a lot of people have had it and aren't worried anymore. And there are lots of people in between that have kind of, not so concerned about it, and people that are terribly concerned. And that makes it very difficult to kind of get to a new normal with our customer base. But one thing I think we can definitely be sure of is that we all thought lockdown was a binary thing. We were either locked down or we weren't. And I was discussing with somebody earlier today that we kind of feel a little bit like we're sort of locked down, but not 100% sure whether we are or not. So that feeling means customers are really uncertain about what they can do, where they can go. And I think if you can be as clear as possible with them in your business, then that's a very important thing to recognise, because none of us really know kind of what's okay anymore, even with our friends, whether we're sort of all right to meet and do certain things. This point here is from a blog called Exponential View, which I really recommend. And the guy who put this slide together, Azim, creates this blog, and he said, we've all been talking about, is the recovery going to be V-shaped, U-shaped, W-shaped? And he said, actually, we're very used to looking at a recovery that's going to be, how much economic activity is there? And over how long is that an economic activity shape going to change? And he argues that actually with something like this, a black swan type event, that there's also a fundamental structural change within the globe and within society, which we are definitely seeing now. I mean, he was quite prescient. I think he wrote this about 2 or 3 months ago, where he said, we will recover and economic activity will recover, but it will get back to where it was financially in a different place than where we expect it to, in this kind of cube scenario. And I really like that as a way to think about it, that said, there will be this new normal, and that it won't just be that we get back to a place where GDP is where it was before, or if we do, it's where it was before, but it's set back in this cube, so it emerges in a very different way. And I think that's quite a nice way to potentially consider what's going on. So the question I would ask anybody looking to sort of plot a business's or a team's course through the next few months is, are we actually bridging a gap? Or are we scaling a whole new mountain? I think there's been this even the concept of calling the loans, bounce back loans, like the government has done. Yeah, they've been brilliant, but actually I think there's a dawning realization that bouncing back is going to be, with the slow lockdown, going to be quite impossible. So you might be well placed to consider a new mountain range and think about what's to come and how you're how your business can navigate through that, because normal habits and behaviors have definitely changed. Continued social distancing is going to be a thing for a long time, even if it isn't necessarily mandated by the government. People may still very much want to do it. So, are we bridging this gap? Is it actually about bouncing back? I think it's probably much more about scaling a mountain range, which leads us on to the question of how will business emerge? I think one of the most important things you could potentially look at is that this virus has fueled trends that already had momentum in the market. So, old businesses that were on the verge of collapse, that were being rescued and re-rescued and rescued, will go under in this phase. New businesses that were potentially going to thrive 5 years from now will probably thrive sooner. But there are many questions that sit within that about, will things go niche? Will they go mainstream? Will there be 2 or 3 tiny niche coffee shops in every big city, or will there be one homogenous Starbucks? Because, not everyone's going to return to the city centre in short order. So I think those are very interesting questions. And then finally, before we move on to the sort of 6 ways that you can engage with the customer, this is some research that we've sort of put together in a graphic from some online reading that we've done. That talks about the different sectors and who might be the potential winners and losers. And we're lucky at Customer Thermometer that we sell across sector. People use our feedback software in all of these sectors, to be honest, and we've definitely seen the greener side of things, being more active in buying and doing more. But the distressed sectors too, they have money to spend, they need to pivot, they need to climb that new mountain range. So I think the message here would be to be very creative about, how will these sectors come back to life, and how can you potentially address what the needs of these sectors are as they change, and sort of almost do a bit of thinking for them in terms of their recovery, so that you can put strategies in place to support them. And then it's really important, I think. I said at the beginning, no one knows what will happen next. I think that's very, very true. I do think there will be signposts. Obviously, there'll be sort of macro signposts in the economy. But from your perspective as a business owner or leader, I think the signposts will pop up in your own business. So what is the most popular help content on your site, for example? If you can look at Google Analytics and see, are there pages that people are visiting now that they weren't visiting before? If you've got a support team or an inbound phone number or email ticketing desk, anywhere where people are asking you questions, what are the most frequently asked questions at the moment? What are the newest queries that you're hearing? They will point up signposts as to how your market and your economy might change. What use cases are appearing that you haven't seen before? So are people using your product in a new way? So at Customer Thermometer, I'd say maybe 75–80% of our business was people buying it to use to gauge customer sentiment. And what we've been seeing over the past couple of months is that we've had inbound requests from existing and potential new customers saying, can we use it to get satisfaction information from our employees? Can we reach out to them to find out how they're working from home, if they're okay with that, if they have all the kit that they need, if they are worried about anything? So, if you can listen to that and then create content and assets and a sort of a go-to-market proposition around it, you might find that the business is actually signposting some ways that you would be able to recover. So do definitely look for those signposts. And if you don't have a very well segmented marketing database, I'd say now is the time to really get working on that project. So even if you only sell into one sector, you can break it down into subsectors and see where the life is and focus on that and really understanding those customers. So with that all said, what does it mean for customer experience? These are sort of thoughts and 6 different ways that I think you can sort of prepare to engage with the new normal customer. So the first thing would be, whether you're an online or an offline business or a hybrid, as many of us are, I would really recommend that you examine all your digital touch points now. This is something that we not necessarily got wrong, but probably didn't investigate well enough at the beginning, which is that, because we are an online business and people buy online, you sort of think, well, we already know how to do this. We're online, we're trading with people are buying it with credit cards, we're emailing them back if they've got problems, everything's fine. But if you actually look at what was in our budget for this year, in terms of industry events, networking events, meetings, traveling, if you take out all of that spend, it's good news for the P&L, but it's potentially worrying how much we're not doing. And we had to question ourselves recently about, I think we thought we were temporarily taking it out and we were going to put it back in quite soon. I'm speaking to people who aren't planning on going back into their offices until January. So, even if you're already relatively digital and everything seems to be a bit all right, or, a bit distressed, but kind of okay, I really wouldn't take it for granted and assume things are fine. You will have had face-to-face interactions up until this point that will be harder to justify and harder to do going forward, and potentially not safe to do either. So, how do you market, sell and service sort of 100% from afar? And how can you replace the things that you had planned doing digitally? I think if you can kind of build yourself a little map to say everything from how do customers find out about us, what do they see when they get to our website, how do we reassure them about everything, how do we onboard them, sell to them, close them, and then get them to be raving fans. And look at what other people are doing. Some people are being incredibly creative at the moment. So, what does a brilliant piece of onboarding look like, or a brilliant piece of invoicing look like? How can you get that word of mouth from people digitally? And again, ask yourself, have you made any proactive improvements to your digital channels? Have you overhauled your email autoresponders, or your thank you for signing up, or your digital invoices that you send out? If you could never see your customers face to face again, presuming you're in a market that doesn't necessitate that happening, then how will you get feedback? How will you know if you're succeeding at what you're doing? So I think those are some interesting questions that you can look at. So, even if you are a cafe or a restaurant, or a sort of, visitor attraction, look at those digital touch points and try and take away the fear. I think there was a great article on the Forbes website a day or two ago, where they said, safety, health and safety is so important across everything that we're all doing as the unlocking happens, but it doesn't have to be to the detriment of customer experience and kindness. And I think if you go into a supermarket now and you see the sort of zombie tape everywhere, and you see it's quite terrifying to go out, I think the winners in this market are going to be people that figure out how to do sort of distancing that delights. And ways that you can kind of make the experience of dealing with you safe, but also enjoyable, because there's no reason the two have to be mutually exclusive, but at the moment they definitely are. So my second point would be look at how customers are likely to behave now. So definitely those red, green, amber sectors that I described in the earlier slide, looking at where people are spending money and how to pivot your offers into those sectors. But also being aware that crises drive innovation too. Some companies actually find their feet in this sort of economy. There will be a lot of underserved needs out there. People need stuff now that they never knew they needed, toilet roll notwithstanding. So, if you're not reaching out to your customers to sell them the things that they need, even if it isn't something you supplied before, then somebody else is. There's some great examples across the bottom here. So on the right-hand side, this is a company that used to make stage sets. And obviously, no one's doing too much theatre right now. So they've pivoted to make these flat pack stand-up desks that they ship out to people. If you're a kind of traditional desk company, then maybe these people are communicating better with your customers and eating some of your breakfast. So that's an interesting one to watch out for. This Evo company, I think, have car parks and have pivoted those into being drive-in movies. So you park with a space in between your space, and they bring food to your car window, so that people can still go to the movies and kind of have a 1950s Back to the Future sort of experience, which is really cool. New Balance obviously making masks. And then on the left-hand side, this is a company that normally makes escape rooms where you would go with a team of people and try and escape. And they're making escape packs where instead of a physical room, you solve a bunch of kind of famous 5-star clues and you escape that way. So I thought all of these were really cool ideas, and they're all serving needs that customers have right now that they simply weren't serving. So maybe look at your skill set as a business rather than just your product set that you sell. Number 3 is tied back to that fear point, really. The FT made a point 2 days ago that customers and employees are in a world of work without workplaces. So lots of people are at sea. They're like that guy on the right on the couch with the question marks. So spell things out for them, do more for them proactively. They won't necessarily ask. They won't know what's okay. I think customers are really quite uncertain about how to deal with businesses these days. So if you can help them feel sort of safe and supported, things can be COVID approved without it looking too awful, then I think it's a good sort of stamp to put on things. And as I said, look at this journey, look at this funnel between prospect, customer, advocate, and maybe work out where people are getting stuck, because I think it isn't necessarily easy, even when you buy something online, to think, am I going to get that? Is it really in stock? Are you going to tell me it's out of stock? There's very, very little information out there. So I think the more you can give, the more you can manage expectations. The flip side is at the moment, customers are so forgiving. They're more forgiving than they've been for decades. But actually, anybody that outperforms in this environment will do better. So look at that funnel, work out where people are getting stuck, and really try and help people that are sort of wanting to deal with you access information in a way that works for them and not for you. So, people are working from home, they've got children running around, there's noise, they've got maybe shorter periods of time where they can give over quietness to studying something. So shorter sort of help guides, video bite-sized bits and pieces, content that's easy for them to access, training that can be shared around, be really responsive. I think just assume that customers need a lot more help than they're asking for would be a really good piece of advice there. It's a strange old world to navigate, so if you can help them, that's a really good thing. Now, my number 4 is it's really dawned on me that serendipity has kind of gone AWOL. It would definitely be a regular occurrence in my life that maybe I'd go to a conference or an event or dinner or meet someone for a coffee. And as I was doing it, someone else would walk past and they would say, oh, hey, Lindsay, have you met so-and-so? And then that would turn into, maybe someone we'd end up employing or a customer or a partner. Those opportunities for serendipitous meeting and conversations are gone. Similarly, we would maybe go to see a customer in their office. We've got a load of customers in the Oxfordshire area. Go and see them, go and see their environment, look at how they're using Customer Thermometer, and then maybe they'd introduce someone from another team who'd go, oh yeah, that thing, I'd quite like to use that. Can we have a chat? And then you'd get a new deal out of it. Those things are just not happening. So I would investigate your business for, how can you make reasons for there to be conversations? Even if it is just as simple as saying, right, I'm going to phone 2 customers a day for no reason, just to see how they're doing. People are actually really warm to that environment, that idea at the moment. if you think about, if you need to buy a new piece of software or a new thing over the course of the next couple of months and it isn't instantly Googleable, word of mouth is going to be really, really important. You're going to contact someone you already know probably and say, hey, have you got a good solicitor or have you got a good accountant? So those things are important. You want to be top of mind as much as you possibly can be. Experience is a really important part of that, reflecting back on my third point. So the stat on the right from Salesforce that 80% of customers say the experience that you give them is as important as what they buy from you, which I think is quite a staggering statistic, but it does make sense. So, that experience, that sort of care and kindness for customers, introducing a bit of serendipity and making reasons for you to have nice conversations with people is a really good thing. And it's easy to let them drop. I mean, we have a good example ourselves, which is that for customers that we've had for a long while or that are new and we're just getting to know, we will send out, or we used to send out, what we call love packs. And they were like sparkly padded envelopes with some chocolate and some stickers and maybe a book on customer experience and a little note from one of us to say we really appreciate your custom. And they always went down really well. We can't send those in this environment. It's just, it's not safe. And also, we don't know people's home addresses and it's not appropriate to ask. So we just stopped doing them. And then we realized that we'd stopped doing them and that 6 or 8 weeks had gone by and we hadn't done any, and that just didn't feel like the right thing for us or our brand. So we got on sort of around a virtual table and came up with the idea of sort of digital love packs where we send an Amazon voucher, which is enough to buy a book and some chocolate. We recommend our favorite chocolate. We recommend some books on customer experience. Obviously, we don't know exactly what people are spending it on, but that's not the point. And we did a spot the difference for people's children if they've got kids. So on the back of the PDF is a kind of customer thermometer library, and there's 8 different differences to spot. And it's just a nice thing to do, but it would have been so easy to think, well, we'll just carry on doing that when things get back to normal. So I'd say if you can be adaptable and creative, it's really easy to put these things off and think, well, they cost money and we'll do it when things get back to normal. But if you don't do them, you might find that things don't get back to normal. So that would be an important thing, I think, to do. So, ask yourself what you've stopped doing that you just thought was temporary, because it's feeling a lot less temporary than it used to be. Ask yourself, what noise are you making in the market right now? Who's hearing you? How do you grow that share of ear as opposed to just the share of wallet that you were probably trying to grow before? And really take a sort of a strong look at what it's like to do business with you. So almost, even if you don't actually mystery shop yourself, just imagine mystery shopping yourself. So, Googling for the kind of service that you offer, finding you online, going to the website, sending in an email, making a phone call, getting a proposal, whatever it looks like in terms of your end-to-end engagement experience. Be really honest with yourself about what is that like, and what does good look like? What does brilliant look like? Is there anything in there that would make people go, wow, that was really cool? Because if there isn't, I think it's time to start sort of putting some of those things in. So my 5th one is about customer success. So if you can make customers successful in this environment, you're onto a winner. And success might be that, it isn't necessarily that they've bought your thing, but that they can get your thing to do whatever it is they wanted it to do. So, you play a really big role in this in terms of your support. And Eileen Olkins, who used to run globally their support structure for Microsoft, said, customer-focused companies just perform better. So if you can organize your team around that funnel and around the best customer success and customer experiences, it's one of the only things that you can control right now. You can't control the pandemic or the political response to it or the fiscal stimulus, but you can control how you organize your team and how you deliver a great customer experience. And whether you're just looking at unlocking again for the first time and you're about to open your shop or your restaurant or your attraction, really think as much about the customer experience as about the rules and regulations, because I think we're all putting zombie tape all over the floor, but none of us is thinking about how that makes customers feel. It is possible to get people to stand 2 meters apart without frightening them. So I think that is an important one to bear in mind, and to really look at what you're doing there. So journey map what these new normal interactions might look like. think about the basics that you offer, the sort of hygiene factors in your industry, and make sure they're brilliant. And then maybe sprinkle some little magic moments on top that are memorable. And then, train your people in this too. This is as scary for your employees as it is for your customers. So, make sure that they understand that they're there to yes, make people follow the rules, but also to be as kind and reassuring as they can. Because, facing employees behind masks and PPE is like being at the dentist or being in hospital. It's really scary. So I think it's important to bear those things in mind.